I'm Susan McCain, Senior Manager in the UK Network team at the British Business Bank, working here in Northern Ireland. I'm going to talk through the headlines and add some narrative to this research that presents findings from a recent intermediary survey undertaken between October and December 2023. Collectively, 725 intermediaries in total took part in this research, providing a range of expert insights and views from accountants, lawyers, business support specialists, finance brokers and many others into the access to finance landscape. I'll be focusing in on the survey findings for Northern Ireland, provided by those working with and engaging with small and medium-sized businesses locally. To begin, I'm going to cover SME demand for finance and then look at the supply and then lastly recap on some of our headline statistics and initiatives that the bank runs to support SMEs. Here on the first chart, you can see that lack of awareness of finance options remains the biggest barrier for demand for finance in Northern Ireland at 61%, and that's similar to other regions and nations across the UK, followed by access to supply of finance and aversion to taking on finance. When considering awareness of different forms of finance, there is a tendency for local SMEs to be less well informed about equity or alternative finance in comparison to other regions. Historically, traditional debt has been the choice of finance locally, which is reflective of the 74% of intermediaries who felt that SMEs were already well informed about debt finance. Yet in contrast, only between 15 and 21% felt that local SMEs were well informed about equity. And it could be that the perceived aversion to equity finance locally is reflective of the abundance of family-run businesses here in Northern Ireland, and in my conversations with stakeholders across the network, it's recognised that more needs to be done to understand these options available in the local market. The bank has also undertaken sub-regional research in collaboration with Enterprise NI, and when we look at those insights, attitudes of SMEs themselves towards equity are seen to vary across the geographies in Northern Ireland, with higher usage identified in more central areas, including Belfast and towards the north and east. When we zone in on intermediary views regarding alternative finance, the figure is slightly more positive at 22%, with Northern Ireland being one of the regions and nations with a higher level of awareness, above the UK average. Anecdotally, alternative finance is certainly more recognised as a complementary source of finance for local SMEs, with business owners becoming more familiar with availing of funding from more than one finance provider. And interestingly, when looking at the sub-regional SME findings, the highest use of invoice finance is reported in Belfast, the North East, and with asset finance, it's highest in the South and North East. This challenge of information awareness has and will continue to drive our work to help enhance that awareness and knowledge sharing across Northern Ireland through similar types of collaborative initiatives to those undertaken in the last year, from our Funding for Growth event series in the north, our Access to Finance conference in the northwest, supporting localised events in Newry and Fermanagh, our Intro to Finance webinars with Inclusive Entrepreneurship NI, and our Business Finance Week events. The second highest barrier I mentioned related to the access to supply of finance, and when we look into that further, 89% of intermediaries viewed there to be gaps regardless of development stage, and that's higher than the UK average. With this survey being undertaken during the same period in which the bank launched the £70 million investment fund for Northern Ireland, which offers up new sources of finance for both debt and equity, it will be interesting to see if this perception changes as these new funds are deployed right across Northern Ireland. Half of Northern Ireland intermediaries felt that SMEs are not well equipped to reduce their debt burden. This is a more favourable position to the overall UK average. However, it's recognised that higher interest rates and costs do create a challenge when it comes to serviceability of debt. The sub-regional SME research findings I referred to also offers additional insight into SME views around business performance, with over half expecting their business to grow in the year ahead and 38% indicating that they are likely to require additional finance in the next year. Half of those respondents are confident that they will be able to access the additional finance they need for their business, with the primary reason for that finance reflecting working capital needs. When we look at the supply of startup finance, Northern Ireland fares less favourably to the UK as a whole, with 65% of respondents feeling that it's inadequate. And this challenge is why our startup loans were introduced, lending over £1 billion to small businesses across the UK since starting in 2012. And just like the rest of the UK, these startup loans provide a great funding route for local entrepreneurs, with over £15 million of loans supporting over 1,700 local business owners here in Northern Ireland, both with the finance and also the mentoring support. The bank have also been working on an initiative to support Awaken Angels, the first all-island women-led angel syndicate created to empower female entrepreneurs and investors and ultimately help to widen that funnel for women founders to access additional investment opportunities. We have also endeavoured to aid that accessibility through the lens of connectivity and investment readiness, two themes that often come up in conversation across the ecosystem. And so last year we supported the delivery of an investment readiness programme for local founders who are seeking to fundraise, and we also continue to support that all-important connectivity between our local innovative companies and investors from across the UK and beyond through Catalyst Inbound Investors. To conclude, there is a recognised lack of awareness of finance options amongst Northern Ireland SMEs, particularly around forms of finance such as equity and alternative finance. Alongside this, there are perceived gaps in the supply of finance, regardless of development stage of business, but particularly for startups. These research findings will continue to help inform and shape the bank's activities that we'll undertake in Northern Ireland through collaborative initiatives with partners and stakeholders to raise awareness of funding options, and in doing so also ensuring that knowledge sharing reaches far and wide, including those underserved communities. I hope this has been helpful, and thank you for listening.